beautiful people. Today I want to talk to you again about the art of listening. In my first video on the art of listening, it went a little bit into the direction of how not to do it, but now I want to speak more in detail about how to actually do it, how to really listen. Now, most of us have a habit of interpreting our experience. And that means we see the world through a filter. We see the world through a filter that is called memory. Since you were a little kid, let's say 4 or 5 years old, you consciously collected memory. You have memory way older than that, even memory, let's say, as a baby, but you cannot consciously access it usually except through deep forms of yoga. Now, your mind has created a narrative. So since being 5 years old, it has created a stream of a story trapped in time. That means from all those memory collected, it has created a sense of self. That means a self-concept, an idea of who you are. Now, this idea of who you are consists of traumas, desires, preferences. It is a unique cocktail of experience, but now here is where the issue begins. The issue is confusing yourself for that cocktail. So then, when I have a certain story and I am identified with that story, let's say the movie in the mind, I confuse it for myself, and now I'm interacting with people based on that movie. Instead of being open to experiencing them, I will interpret their behavior, the way they talk, the way they move through my memory, and therefore assign them a role in my movie. And when I assign them a role in my movie, I cannot see them for who they are. I see them as a concept. The same way I am attached and trapped then in my self-concept, I trap them in a concept that, in that sense, fits the story of my self-concept. So seeing the world through concepts, this is illusion. Because when you see something through memory, you only see it from the perspective of the past. But that means nothing new can happen there. The past is conditioning. So if I look at something through conditioning, what do? I create the same circumstances that keep the conditioning alive. So if I have a self-concept and a narrative that I want to have proven, I will interpret everything that happens based on the story and self-concept. Nothing new can happen there. No new possibilities arise. The creative element is eliminated from the experience. Now the creative element is where deeper intelligence comes in. But if I think I consist of memory, I'm not in a state of surrender to allow that deeper intelligence, the creativity, which is deep in link with the creator, to come forth and transform as a situation into something new that is not based on conditioning, and that means it's not based on karma. So if I want to break the wheel of karma, it's tremendously important that I stop acting from memory, that I stop interpreting from memory. Well, how can I do that? Well, it's tremendously important to watch your breath at all times. Now, many of us think that we need to have a certain discipline in listening to people. So when we listen to people, we sit down and we think really hard what they're saying, try to analyze what they mean and so on. But by having an active element in there, an analyzing element, a discriminatory element, we create illusion. So nothing new can be born there. There's a controlling thing in there, and something that is controlling is based on fear. So if I look at a person and I think there's a right way to approach that person, or there is a wrong way to approach that person, I've already limited myself. So in order to not limit myself, it's important that we approach every situation as if it never happened before, because it didn't. Every situation right now, every manifestation of experience is unique, is new. But can I see it? This is the question. Can I suspend my attachment to my ideas of what I think reality is? Can I suspend my ideas of what people are? can I not see them through the glasses of trauma? So then we watch our breath. We watch our breath and we let go of thought completely. We relax the body and just make it as an exercise, maybe in a not so stressful situation that you meet with a friend in a cafe. Yeah, maybe sit outside, relax, and then watch your breath. Stop listening from the level of intellect. Instead, shift your whole awareness into your breathing. Watch how your abdomen is expanding and retreating, expanding and retreating. And while you watch that, realize that you don't need thought to understand what someone says. Quite the opposite. Often people who are easily deceived are those who try to interpret by thought. So then they do not pay attention to body language. They do not pay attention to someone's emotion, facial expression. But it's not only that, they do not pay attention to energy. Energy does not lie. Energy is something we cannot, in that sense, manipulate or mask. Energy is true. So if we sit in front of someone and we let go of our need to understand, because understanding comes from fear. There is an idea, if I don't understand, something bad's going to happen. I'm going to get rejected, I'm going to get loved or whatever. This is fear, this is the separate self, this is the ego. So to let go of the idea that you need to respond in a certain way. You instead just sit, watch your breath, and if you ask the question, just close your eyes. Sink deeply within yourself and see what spontaneously arises. Not based on memory, but what harmoniously fits the circumstances that you're in. Then a creative element comes in. Now you cease to act from conditioning, and this liberates you from repeating painful patterns. So then, in order to consciously listen, we need to have a beginner's mind. There's quite a well-known Zen book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Suzuki. And he says it very clearly. He says in the expert's minds there are few possibilities. In a beginner's mind there are many. In fact, in a beginner's mind, that means in the no mind, in the unbiased, unjudging mind, there is infinite potential. Infinite potential is who you are. But if you have a self-concept, you limit that infinite potential. You can only give birth to what you believe to know, and it's going to be a repetition of the past, so your relationships cannot be transformed. In order to transform your relationship, you need to step out from the perception of time into the timeless, because the timeless is not trapped in conditions. The person, the nervous system, and so on has experienced a lot of conditioning. Now, when I watch my breath and I stop trying to understand by thought, I let go of thought completely. I relax my body. Now I let go of the person. And now something timeless wakes up to the present moment and can creatively express itself. And this is when something deeper in you is awakening. This is what we call Christ consciousness or Buddha consciousness. So then, at first it might appear foreign to you. What's that intelligence in me that makes those decisions? What's that intelligence in me that comes up with new ways of approaching things, with effortless ways of answering or responding to life situations? Well, at first it appears foreign to you because you have been living in a dark cave for too long. When we have been living in a dark cave in ignorance and we walk out the cave, suddenly we are so blinded by the light, it's uncomfortable. And then we want to retreat into the cave because it appears to us as the known. Or like someone who has been living in prison for a very long time, and now suddenly they walk outside and they feel tremendously alienated and scared. But you're supposed to leave that prison. You're supposed to leave the prison of the limited self. You're supposed to awaken to infinite potential. So as such, it is important to realize when you start watching your breath and you let go of all needs of control, that intelligence that arises within you is not something alien, it's not something foreign, it is you. You in that moment start remembering. So then in order to really listen, we need to let go of all biases, all beliefs, that means of all conditioning, of all karma. Do not be tempted by patterns. Just because someone moves like someone you know, someone talks like someone you know, does not mean that they are what you perceive. Your biases, your beliefs basically put a limitation on your interactions with people. And your beliefs, in that sense, will limit what you can experience. I've experienced this myself with clients where I had a certain idea, a certain concept of them, and I would treat them like that concept. And then after a lot of sessions, I suddenly would realize, well, I was in that sense interacting with the mask of this being, with the ego of this being, because in truth, they were much wiser, much more intelligent, much more, let's say, talented in certain areas that I knew, but since my concept of that being didn't allow that to emerge, it didn't happen. So once I let go of all ideas of, for example, my clients, of all the stories that I might have created in mind, and also stories of myself, well, if I let go of said stories, something new can emerge and transformation happens. So as such, the voice in your mind that gives you a narrative is an illusion. Any form of self-definition is a self-limitation. And since anyone that you meet is also self, is also you, the moment you define them, you have limited yourself. Let go of the limitations. Be in the present moment, which is the infinite, which is the eternal, the timeless, and therefore allow something else to arise within you that transforms the situation and does not repeat karma. Contemplate about that. Be well.